The mockery at Nexus Station. The Phoenix Dawn limped toward Nexus Station like a wounded bird trying to find a place to land. Her hull was a patchwork of different metals, some gleaming silver, others dull brown with age. Scorch marks ran along her sides like battle scars, and her 3 engines glowed with uneven light. To anyone watching, she looked like she might fall apart before reaching the docking bay. Captain Sarah Chun sat in her command chair, watching the massive station grow larger on the main screen. Nexus Station was a marvel of alien engineering, a spinning wheel of crystal and metal that housed representatives from dozens of species. It was neutral territory where trade deals were made and diplomatic meetings happened. Today, it would host the Galactic Council's annual technology showcase. Docking. Clearance approved, Captain, said Tom Bradley from the communications station. Tom was a big man with kind eyes who had once been Earth's ambassador to 3 different alien worlds. Now he handled the Phoenix Dawn's communications with his usual diplomatic skill. They've assigned us Bay 94, the cargo section, noted Zoe. Park from the navigation console. Zoe was small and quick, with short black hair and sharp green eyes. She had served in Earth's military intelligence before joining Sarah's crew. They're putting us with the freight haulers, not the diplomatic vessels. Sarah smiled slightly. She was in her early 40s, with brown hair streaked with gray, and the kind of calm confidence that came from years of command. That's exactly where we want to be, Zoe. Let them think we're just another salvage crew. From the engine room came the voice of Marcus Rodriguez, though everyone called him Mac. Captain, we're running hot on Engine 2 again. I can keep her stable for now, but we're definitely playing the part of a ship barely holding together. Mac was a genius with mechanical systems, able to make broken technology work with nothing but spare parts and determination. He had joined Sarah's crew 5 years ago when his previous ship was destroyed by pirates. The Phoenix Dawn had rescued him from a life pod, and he had never left Dot as they approached the docking bay. Sarah could see other ships already berthed at the station. The sight made her pause. Sleek Etherian vessels glowed with soft blue light, their hulls smooth as glass. Massive Kralthic warships bristled with weapons, their dark metal surfaces polished to mirror brightness. Fast Zentari scout ships darted between the larger vessels like silver arrows. Look at that, Tom said, pointing to the biggest ship in the diplomatic section. That's Admiral Vorthic's flagship, the Iron Dominion, 2 kilometers long and armed with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The Iron Dominion was indeed impressive. Its hull was jet black with silver trim, and weapon ports lined its sides like glowing eyes. Energy shields shimmered around it in patterns of purple and gold. Smaller escort ships surrounded it in perfect formation. Admiral Vorthic, Zoe said with distaste. I remember him from the intelligence briefings. He thinks humans are barely evolved from primitive apes. He's been pushing for restrictions on human space travel for years. The Phoenix Dawn settled onto the landing pad with a shudder that ran through her entire frame. Steam hissed from her engines as Mac shut down the main power systems. Through the view screen, Sarah could see alien workers stopping their tasks to stare at the battered human ship. Some were pointing and laughing. Well, team, Sarah said, standing up and straightening her worn leather jacket. Time to make an impression. Remember, we're just simple salvage operators trying to make a neck. Honest living. The crew gathered at the airlock. Sarah wore her old Earth Fleet jacket over simple work clothes. Tom had on his former diplomatic uniform, though it was faded and patched. Zoe wore practical coveralls with tool belts, and Mac emerged from the Fae. Engine room covered in grease stains and carrying a TOOLKIT dot as the airlock opened. They were greeted by a group of official alien representatives. At the front stood Admiral Vorthic himself, A towering Kralthik with gray-green skin like armor plating and 4 arms that ended in clawed hands. His uniform was covered in medals and rank insignia that gleamed under the station's lights. Behind him stood Ambassador Zilani, an Etherian whose translucent blue skin glowed softly with inner light. She was tall and graceful, with large silver eyes that seemed to see everything. The Etherians were known for their wisdom and diplomatic skills, but they also had little patience for what they saw as primitive behavior. "So," Admiral Vorthik said, in a voice that rumbled like distant thunder, "these are the famous human space travelers I have heard so much about." His tone dripped with mockery as he looked the crew up and down. "I must say, I expected something more ... impressive." Sarah kept her expression neutral. "Good afternoon, Admiral. I'm Captain Shun. We're here for the technology showcase, just like everyone else." Vorthik walked around the Phoenix Dawn, shaking his massive head. "This vessel must be centuries old. How does it even remain functional? I can see damage that has been repaired with primitive welding techniques." "She's old," Sarah admitted, "but she gets us where we need to go." "Gets you where you need to go?" One of Vorthik's officers laughed, a harsh sound like breaking glass. "What kind of distances could such a relic possibly travel? Between nearby asteroids, perhaps?" More aliens had gathered to watch the spectacle. Sarah noticed Xanthari traders with their insect-like features clicking their mandibles in amusement. A group of crystal-based silicoids chimed together in what passed for laughter among their species. Even some of the station workers had stopped to enjoy the show. Ambassador Zilani stepped forward, her voice melodic but cold. "Captain Shun, surely you understand that Nexus Station is meant for vessels of a certain ... standard. Your ship appears to be more suited for a scrapyard than a diplomatic facility." "We have valid registration and clearance codes," Tom said diplomatically. "Earth is a member of the Galactic Council with full rights to participate in Council events." "Technically correct," Vorthik admitted, "but membership does not guarantee competence." He pointed one of his clawed hands at his own ship. The Iron Dominion represents the pinnacle of military engineering. Quantum torpedo launchers, plasma beam arrays, shields that could withstand a supernova. My vessel could destroy 1,000 ships like yours without sustaining damage. "Very impressive," Sarah said simply. "Impressive?" Vorthik's laugh was like rocks grinding together. "It is far beyond impressive, human. It is perfection. This is what happens when a species dedicates itself to excellence rather than..." He gestured at the Phoenix Dawn with obvious disdain. Zoe took a step forward, her hand moving instinctively toward her sidearm. Sarah caught her eye and gave a slight shake of her head. Zoe relaxed, but continued glaring at the aliens. "Perhaps," Ambassador Zilani said with false sympathy, "humans should focus on what they do well. Simple tasks. Basic resource gathering. Leave the complex work of space exploration and defense to species with more advanced capabilities." "I'll keep that in mind," Sarah replied evenly. Admiral Vorthik wasn't finished with his performance. He had an audience now, with dozens of aliens watching from throughout the docking bay. "You know, Captain Chun, I am curious. What exactly does humanity contribute to the galaxy? What innovations have you brought us? What problems have you solved? And we could not handle ourselves?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Sarah felt her crew tense behind her. She knew they were all thinking the same thing. They wanted to show these arrogant aliens exactly what humans could do. But this wasn't the time or place. "We're still learning," Sarah said. "Every species has something to offer." "Learning," Vorthik repeated with amusement. "Yes, I suppose that is the best humans can hope for. To learn from their betters." He turned to address the crowd that had gathered. "Perhaps this is educational for all of us. A reminder of how far some species have yet to evolve. The other aliens murmured their agreement. Sarah heard comments in a dozen different languages, but the tone was universal, condescension mixed with pity. Mac's voice crackled through Sarah's earpiece. "Captain, I'm reading some interesting energy signatures from the station's long-range sensors. Looks like there might be some excitement coming our way." Sarah touched her earpiece subtly. "What kind of excitement?" "Multiple ships approaching. Fast from the outer system. Could be nothing, but the pattern looks like they're trying to stay hidden." Before Sarah could process this information fully, alarms began blaring throughout the docking bay. Red warning lights flashed as the stations. "Automated systems activated. Asterisk. Attention all vessels," came an announcement in the station's main language, followed by translations. "We have received a priority distress signal from the research vessel Deep Explorer. They report engine failure and life support problems in the Kepler Nebula. Any ships capable of rescue operations are requested to respond immediately." Admiral Vorthik straightened his uniform. Finally, a chance for real action. He turned to his officers. "Prepare the Iron Dominion for immediate departure. We shall show these primitives how a proper rescue operation is conducted." "The Kepler Nebula," Zoe said quietly. "That's a dangerous area. Lots of interference, hard to navigate. Perfect place for an ambush." Mac added through the Comdat. Sarah made a decision. "Admiral, we'd like to help with the rescue operation." Vorthik's laughter was even louder this time. "You?" "Captain Shun, this is a serious emergency requiring fast ships and advanced technology. Your vessel would only slow down a real rescue effort." "We know those nebula fields," Sarah insisted. "We've salvaged ships from that area before." "Absolutely not," Ambassador Zilani said firmly. "This rescue requires precision and speed. Human involvement would only complicate matters and potentially endanger more lives." The crowd of aliens nodded their agreement. To them, it was obvious that humans had nothing to contribute to a real crisis. "Very well," Sarah said. "We'll stay here and learn from our betters." Admiral Vorthik smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Excellent. Watch carefully, Captain Shun. Perhaps you will see what real spacefaring capabilities look like." Within an hour, the Kralthik fleet had departed Nexus Station in perfect formation. The Iron Dominion led a group of 6 warships toward the Kepler Nebula, their engines blazing with brilliant light. Other alien vessels followed, Etherian cruisers, Centauri scouts, and ships from a dozen other species. It was an impressive sight that drew admiring comments from everyone watching. The Phoenix Dawn sat alone in her docking bay, still looking like a piece of space junk that someone had forgotten to throw away. "Well," Tom said as they watched the fleet disappear into hyperspace. "That was humiliating, was it?" Sarah asked with a small smile. "Mac, what's our real status?" "All systems green, Captain. The engine problems were just some smoke I was pumping out to make us look worse than we are. We could leave right now if needed." "Zoe, what did your analysis show about those approaching ships?" "Definitely not friendly," Zoe replied. "The sensor shadows suggest at least 20 vessels moving in attack formation. If I had to guess, someone's using that distress call to set up an ambush." Sarah nodded. "Tom, send a message to Admiral Vorthik. Tell him we've detected possible hostile activity in the Kepler Nebula and recommend extreme caution." "Already tried?" "Captain, he's not accepting communications from us. Apparently, we're not important enough to bother with." "His loss," Sarah said quietly. She looked at her crew, people who had followed her through dangers that would terrify most aliens. They had been insulted and dismissed, but they were still ready to help if needed. "Mac, begin pre-flight preparations, but keep it quiet." "Zoe, plot the fastest course to the Kepler Nebula using the back routes that other ships don't know about." "Tom, Monitor all communications from the rescue fleet. Captain, Tom said carefully, they made it pretty clear they don't want our help. Sarah's smile grew wider. They don't want our help as the Phoenix Dawn, a beaten-up old salvage ship. She paused. But they never asked what we used to be. As her crew began their preparations, Sarah walked to her personal quarters and opened a sealed locker that hadn't been touched in years. Inside was a uniform she hadn't worn in a long time, the black and silver of Earthfleet, Special Operations. The Phoenix Dawn might look like junk, but appearances could be very deceiving indeed. Sometimes the most dangerous predator was the one that looked weak and harmless dot in the Kepler Nebula. Admiral Vorthik and his fleet were about to discover that humans had learned a lot more than anyone suspected. And when cornered, humans didn't just fight back, they fought smart. The real rescue operation was about to begin. Asterisk. The Phoenix rises. The Kepler Nebula stretched across space like a colorful painting made of gas and stardust. Purple and gold clouds swirled in patterns that could hide entire fleets, while electromagnetic storms created lightning that could be seen from light years away. It was beautiful and deadly, the kind of place where ships went to disappear. Admiral Vorthik stood on the bridge of the Iron Dominion, watching his fleet move through the nebula in perfect formation. 6 Kralthik warships followed his flagship, their dark hulls barely visible against the cosmic backdrop. The rescue mission was proceeding exactly as planned. "Sir," reported Captain Threx from the communication station, "we're still receiving the distress signal from the Deep Explorer. They claim to be drifting near the nebula's core with critical systems failing. Maintain course," Vorthik ordered. "This rescue will demonstrate Kralthik's superiority to the entire galaxy. Let the humans watch from their docking bay and learn what real capability looks like." But something was wrong. The Deep Explorer's distress signal was too clean, too regular. Real emergencies created chaos in communications, not the steady pattern they were receiving. Captain Threx had noticed it too, but questioning the Admiral's decisions was not encouraged in the Kralthik military. Suddenly, the nebula around them exploded with movement. Ships emerged from the gas clouds like predators bursting from hiding. Dozens of vessels painted in black and red, with skull markings and weapon ports that glowed like angry eyes. They came from every direction, above, below, and from the sides, surrounding the Kralthik fleet in a perfect trap. Ambush. Captain Threx shouted, but it was already too late for evasive action. The largest pirate ship, a converted battle cruiser, called the Void Reaper, moved to block their escape route. Its captain's voice boomed across all communication channels with obvious satisfaction. "Greetings, Admiral Vorthik. I am Pirate Lord Kessex of the Nebula Raiders. Welcome to my territory." The voice belonged to a Voidborn, one of the artificial species created by long-dead civilizations. They were known for their cold intelligence and complete lack of mercy. Vorthik's 4 arms moved across his control panels with practiced speed. "All ships, combat formation. Prepare to engage hostile vessels." "Oh, Admiral." Kessex's laughter was like static electricity. "I'm afraid you misunderstand the situation. You see, there never was a research vessel in distress. The Deep Explorer has been under my control for months. We've been using it to lure rescue fleets into this nebula, where they become salvage for my crews." The truth hit Vorthik like a physical blow. The rescue mission had been a trap from the beginning. His fleet of 7 ships was surrounded by at least 30 pirate vessels, and they were fighting in terrain that favored ambush tactics over formal military strategy. "You will find that Kralthik warships are not easy prey," Vorthik declared, though uncertainty crept into his voice. "We shall see," Kessex replied. "Raiders, begin the harvest." The battle erupted across the nebula. Energy beams cut through the colorful gas clouds like deadly light shows. Explosions bloomed and faded, creating new patterns in the cosmic dust. The Krulthik ships were powerful and well-armed, but they were outnumbered and fighting an enemy that knew every hiding spot in the nebula. Pirate ships would appear from behind gas clouds, fire their weapons, then vanish before the Krulthik could return fire effectively. It was guerrilla warfare in space, and the pirates were winning. Shield strength down to 60%, Captain Threx reported as another wave of attacks hit the Iron Dominion. 2 of our escort ships have taken heavy damage. Meanwhile, light years away at Nexus Station, the Phoenix Dawn sat quietly in her docking bay, but inside the ship, activity was frantic. Sarah Chun had shed her worn leather jacket for the black uniform of Earth Fleet Special Operations. Her crew was moving with military precision as they prepared systems that hadn't been active in years. "Captain," Mac called from the engine room, "main drive is online and showing full power. All weapon systems are armed and ready. Stealth generators at maximum efficiency," Zoe reported. "We'll be invisible to their sensors until we choose to reveal ourselves." Tom Bradley monitored communications from multiple sources. The Krulthik fleet is in serious trouble. They're taking heavy casualties, and their formation is breaking apart. Sarah studied the tactical display showing the battle in the Kepler Nebula. The Krulthik ships appeared as blue dots surrounded by red enemy contacts. It was a massacre in progress. "They wouldn't listen when we tried to warn them," Tom said quietly. "No," Sarah agreed, "but that doesn't mean we let them die." She activated the ship's internal communications. "All hands, this is the captain. We're going into combat against superior numbers in hostile territory. Anyone who wants to transfer to another ship can leave now with no questions asked." The response came back immediately from all stations. "We're with you, Captain," Sarah smiled. Her crew had been through hell together, and they trusted each other completely. "Then let's show the galaxy what humans really are. Mac, take us out quietly. Zoe, set course for the nebula using the deep roots." The Phoenix Dawn lifted off from her docking pad with none of the shuddering and smoke that had marked her arrival. Her engines glowed with clean, efficient light as advanced systems came online. The battered hull began to shift and change as camouflage plating moved to reveal the ship's true configuration. What had looked like rust and damage was actually adaptive armor designed to absorb enemy fire. The patches of different metals were sensor-absorbing materials that made the ship nearly invisible to detection. The Phoenix Dawn wasn't a salvage vessel at all. She was a stealth assault ship built by Earth's finest military engineers. As they traveled through hyperspace toward the battle, Sarah explained the situation to her crew. The Phoenix Dawn was built during the early years of human space exploration, when we didn't know what we might face out here. Earthfleet wanted ships that could operate independently behind enemy lines. "So we're basically a ghost ship," Max said with admiration. "Exactly. We can appear and disappear at will, strike hard, and vanish before the enemy knows what hit them. The pirates have never seen anything like us." In the Kepler Nebula, the situation was getting desperate for Admiral Vorthik. 3 of his escort ships had been destroyed or disabled, and the remaining vessels were running low on ammunition. The pirates were closing in for the final kill. "Sir," Captain Threx said urgently, "I'm recommending we surrender. We can't fight 30 ships with only 4 remaining vessels." "Krulthik do not surrender," Vorthik replied, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. He was beginning to understand that military arrogance was no substitute for tactical intelligence. Pirate Lord Kessex seemed to read his thoughts. "Admiral, you have fought bravely, but the outcome is inevitable. Surrender now, and I promise your crews will be treated well as my prisoners. Continue fighting, and I will show no mercy." Vorthik looked around his bridge at officers who had served with honor for decades. They were brave warriors, but they were also doomed unless something changed quickly. That's when the impossible happened. A new ship appeared on everyone's sensors, dropping out of hyperspace right in the middle of the battle. But this wasn't one of the sleek alien vessels they were used to seeing. This was the Phoenix Dawn, and she looked very different than she had at Nexus Station. Her hull gleamed with military precision, weapons ports glowed with ready energy, and sensor arrays swept the battlefield with electronic intelligence. She moved through the nebula with perfect confidence, as if the dangerous environment was her natural home. "Unknown vessel," Pirate Lord Kessex transmitted. "You have entered a combat zone. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." Sarah's voice came back calm and clear. "This is Captain Chun of the Earth vessel Phoenix Dawn. Pirates of the Nebula Raiders, you are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to galactic law." The laughter from dozens of pirate ships filled the communication channels. One surrounded ship claiming to outgun 30? It seemed like madness. "Human," Kessex replied. "Your bravery is admirable but foolish. You cannot possibly believe that one ship can defeat my entire fleet." "You're right," Sarah admitted. "One ship couldn't do it, but I'm not alone." Suddenly, the nebula came alive with new contacts. Ships appeared from every direction, dropping their stealth systems to reveal themselves. They weren't large vessels, but they moved with deadly purpose, and their weapons were already locked onto pirate targets. The Phoenix Dawn hadn't come alone. She had brought a full squadron of Earth Fleet stealth ships, each one a masterpiece of military engineering. They had been hiding in the nebula for hours, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Impossible," Kessex whispered. "Our sensors showed nothing." "Human stealth technology," Sarah explained almost conversationally. "We learned early that. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to make sure your enemy never sees you coming." The tide of battle changed in seconds. The human ships struck with precision and coordination that amazed both the pirates and the Kralfik. They knew exactly where to hit each enemy vessel for maximum effect. Within minutes, half the pirate fleet was disabled or destroyed. Admiral Vorthik watched in stunned silence as the humans he had mocked saved his entire fleet. These weren't primitive cargo haulers. They were warriors who had been preparing for galactic conflict longer than anyone suspected. "How?" he whispered. Sarah's ship moved alongside the Iron Dominion, close enough for direct communication. "Admiral, we tried to warn you about the ambush. Next time, maybe listen when humans offer advice." The battle was over quickly after that. The remaining pirates, faced with a choice between surrender and destruction, chose to give up. Pirate Lord Kessex himself was captured when his ship's engines were disabled by precise human fire. As the rescue ships secured the pirates and tended to the wounded, Admiral Vorthik requested permission to come aboard the Phoenix Dawn. Sarah agreed, curious to see how the arrogant Kralfik would handle having his life saved by primitives. Vorthik arrived with a small honor guard, but his attitude was completely different from their meeting at Nexus Station. He looked around the Phoenix Dawn's bridge with new respect, taking in the advanced technology and military efficiency. "Captain Chun," he said formally, "I owe you an apology. My behavior at the station was inappropriate." "You judged by appearances," Sarah replied simply. "Most people do." "But why?" Vorthik asked. "Why did you disguise your capabilities? Why let others think humans were weak?" Sarah smiled. "Sometimes it's useful to be underestimated. People make mistakes when they think you're not a threat." "The Phoenix Dawn," Vorthik said slowly. "She is not really a salvage vessel, is she?" "She's been many things over the years," Sarah replied. "But her primary mission has always been to protect human interests in space. Sometimes that means fighting. Sometimes it means rescuing arrogant aliens who got in over their heads." Vorthik's face showed what might have been embarrassment among his species. "You saved my entire fleet after I insulted you publicly. That's what people do, Sarah said. They help each other when it matters. The journey back to Nexus Station was very different from the trip out. The human ships escorted the damaged. Kralthik vessels, providing protection and technical assistance. Admiral Vorthik found himself working alongside humans he had dismissed as inferior just hours before. When they arrived at the station, word of the rescue had already spread. The docking bays were crowded with representatives from dozens of species, all wanting to see the human ships that had defeated the Nebula Raiders. Ambassador Zilani was among the first to greet them. The Etherian diplomat, who had been so condescending before now, approached with obvious respect. Captain Shun, she said formally, the Galactic Council would like to offer Earth a full seat on the Military Advisory Committee. Your tactical innovations could benefit all member species. We'll consider it, Sarah replied diplomatically. Admiral Vorthik stepped forward to address the crowd. I want everyone to know that Captain Shun and her crew saved not just my fleet, but hundreds of Kralthik lives. They responded to our distress with courage and skill, despite having no obligation to help us. He paused, looking directly at Sarah. I have learned today that strength is not always visible on the surface. The humans have much to teach us about preparation, tactics, and honor. As the crowd dispersed and the aliens began to see humans in a new light, Sarah's crew gathered around her. So, Max said with a grin, do we go back to playing the part of simple salvage operators? Sarah looked at the Phoenix Dawn, still bearing her disguise of patches and false damage. Sometimes, she said, the best weapon is the one your enemy never sees coming. The galaxy had learned an important lesson that day. Humans might look different from other species, might use different technology, might approach problems in unexpected ways. But they were far from primitive. And sometimes, the ship that looked like junk was actually the most dangerous vessel in the fleet. The Phoenix Dawn settled back into her docking bay, her hull already beginning to show false rust and damage again. To casual observers, she looked like the same beaten-up old ship that had arrived days before. But now everyone knew better. Now they understood that humans were full of surprises. And in the dangerous galaxy where they all lived, that made humans very valuable allies indeed.